Welcome to We've Got a Country to Say, brought to you by my friends at InvestYRefy.com. Invest in America like I do. And by Freedom Chat. Freedom Chat has true end-to-end encryption, no storage of messages on the server, and no commercial use of user data. Speak freely and message privately. Download the app today and subscribe to my Freedom Chat channel at Larry Elder for exclusive posts and never-before-seen content. We also thank Epoch Times, Old Glory Bank, Patriot Mobile, and Birch Gold. Make sure to follow or subscribe to my channel on whatever platform you are using, whether it's X, YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. And be sure to patronize our sponsors. And if you don't patronize our sponsors, well... we know where you live. Trump unlocks the secret of his genius charisma.
You know, I do a thing called a weave. And there are those that are fair that say, this guy is so genius. Then others would say, oh, he rambled. I don't ramble. What you do is you weave things and you do it. You need an extraordinary memory because you have to come back to where you started.
They don't give you credit for that. And you can go all the way over here and then get back.
I can go so far here or there. And I can come back to exactly where I started. Someday when you don't come back to where you started...
you're Biden.
I call it the weave. And some people think it's so genius, but the bad people, what they say is, he was rambling. It's not a ramble. There's no rambling.
This is a weave.
This is a weave. Good name. I'm not sure. That's another name. We had fake news. We came up with lots of names. I think we should make the weave a part of that stable.
Yeah, you really weaved your way to answer my question twice.
Brilliant.
So,
I don't even want to know the answer.
Let's weave back to his question.
Kamala Harris is asked by the friendlies on The View, how are you different from Joe Biden? What decision would you have made in the last 3.5 years that would have been different?
What do you think would be the biggest specific difference between your presidency and a Biden presidency?
Well, we're obviously two different people, and we have a lot of shared life experiences. For example, the way we feel about our family and our parents and so on. But we're also different people, and I will bring those sensibilities to how I lead.
Under a Harris administration, what would the major changes be, and what would stay the same?
Sure. Well, I mean, I'm obviously not Joe Biden.
I noticed.
And so that would be one change in terms of...
Obviously, I'm not Joe Biden. That's your answer?
Well, if anything, would you have done something differently than President Biden during the past 4 years?
There is not a thing that comes to mind in terms of, and I've been a part of most of the decisions that have had impact.
Nothing that comes to mind?
Kamala Harris could not think of one thing that you would do differently. And you know, it's strange, because when I saw that question, I said, oh, this is going to be a long answer. Because she could have done it in a nice way. I wish I would have done this on the border. I wish we would have closed up the border. I wish we didn't have the horrific acts of violence against all of those children and all of the things. She could have really done. And I said, well, this will be a good answer. She didn't know what the hell to say. But think of it. It was a softball question. It was meant that she was, and she said, no, I would have done everything. So all of the agony, all of the suffering, all of the inflation and the border and the criminals coming into our country, she wouldn't have done anything different than this guy that should have really never been president, in my opinion, should have never been president. So she said that there would be nothing, and to me that is a disqualifying answer. That should disqualify her from even running, if that's going to be the case.
Here's the problem. 65% of Americans believe we're on the wrong track, and if you would not do anything differently, how are you going to get us on the right track? Biden, by the way, said the same thing.
There have obviously been a number of crises that the country has been facing over the past several days, with the hurricane, with the port strike, with the situation in the Middle East. Can you talk about how your vice president, who is running for the presidency, has worked on these crises and what role she has played over the past several days?
Well, I'm in constant contact with her. She's aware we're singing from the same song sheet. She helped pass all the laws that are being employed now. She was a major player in everything we've done, including passage of legislation which we were told we could never pass. And so she's been, and her staff is interlocked with mine in terms of all the things we're doing.
Singing from the same song sheet. Now, mispronounce that, you can get into some serious trouble. Now, watch this. Hey, Siri, What is a tax deduction? A tax deduction or benefit is an amount deducted from taxable income, usually based on expenses such as those incurred to produce additional income.
My passion, one of them, is small businesses. My mother raised my sister and me, but there was a woman who helped raise us. We call her our second mother. She was a small business owner. I love our small businesses. My plan is to give a $50,000 tax deduction to startup small businesses, knowing they are part of the backbone of America's economy.
Hey Siri, what is a tax deduction? A tax deduction or benefit is an amount deducted from taxable income, usually based on expenses such as those incurred to produce said additional income. Startup businesses don't have taxable income. That's why they're called startups.
And to help achieve this, we will lower the cost of starting a new business. So here's the thing. On average, it costs about $40,000 to start a new business in America. That is a great financial barrier for a lot of folks, and it can hold entrepreneurs back. And the current tax deduction for a startup is just $5,000, okay? So then you gotta make up the delta there. Gotta figure out how you're gonna do that. Not everyone has access to that kind of wealth and capital. So part of my plan is we will expand the tax deduction for startups to $50,000. It's essentially a tax cut for starting a small business.
I'm trying to explain to you that it is impossible to pay the check because your expenses have exceeded your income to such a point that you have exhausted your capital. Now you have no capital, no income, therefore no funds for the check, you see.
Don't treat me as though I were a child, Mr. Beckett.
No, I'm not.
I am as aware of what it means to have no capital as you are.
Oh, good, good.
Now, what about this check?
Someone please tell Kamala Harris what the definition of a tax deduction is?
Which is why another thing that I'm really focused on is small businesses and startups, and giving startups a $50,000 tax deduction, because right now it's $5,000 and you can't start up any small business with $5,000.
She repeats the line, you can't start up a small business with $5,000. She clearly means her policy is to hand out $50,000, not a deduction. A deduction only happens if you make a profit. How many times do we have to say this?
Harry?
Hi, folks. Do you trust this economy? What if you could receive a strong fixed rate of return that's not correlated to the stock market or the Fed? And what if you were in control? You could turn your income on or off, compound it, whatever you choose. What if your interest was compounded daily, you were paid monthly, and there were absolutely no fees? And what if you could have peace of mind because there was no attack on your principal if you ever needed your money back? Well, folks, there is an investment with all of these features. Investors all over the country are earning a high fixed rate of return with Yrefy, and they don't care about what happens with the stock market or the Fed. And best of all, they receive their statement every month with no surprises. Would you like some more information? Just call 877-80-INVEST. That's 877-80-INVEST. Or log on to investyrefy.com. That's investyrefy.com. Yrefy, do well by doing good. This is why Kamala Harris avoids sit-down interviews. On 60 Minutes, she tried to blame Trump for the flood of illegal aliens across the southern border. She didn't quite get away with it.
You recently visited the southern border and embraced President Biden's recent crackdown on asylum seekers. And that crackdown produced an almost immediate and dramatic decrease in the number of border crossings. If that's the right answer now, why didn't your administration take those steps in 2021?
The first bill we proposed to Congress was to fix our broken immigration system, knowing that if you want to actually fix it,
we need Congress to act. It was not taken up. Fast forward to a moment when a bipartisan group of members of the United States Senate, including one of the most conservative members of the United States Senate, got together, came up with a border security bill. Well, guess what happened? Donald Trump got word that this bill was afoot and could be passed, and he wants to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem, so he told his buddies in Congress, kill the bill, don't let it move forward.
But the interviewer didn't let her off the hook.
I've been covering the border for years, and so I know this is not a problem that started with your administration.
Correct.
But there was an historic flood of undocumented immigrants coming across the border the first 3 years of your administration. As a matter of fact, arrivals quadrupled from the last year of President Trump. Was it a mistake to loosen the immigration policies as much as you did?
It's a long-standing problem, and solutions are at hand. And from day one, literally, we have been offering solutions.
But was it a mistake for you not to have done this earlier?
What I was asking was it a mistake to kind of allow that flood to happen in the first place?
I think the policies that we have been proposing are about fixing a problem, not promoting a problem. Okay?
But the numbers did quadruple.
And the numbers
under your
today,
watch.
because of what we have done, we have cut the flow of illegal immigration by half.
But should you have done
cut
that?
the
Should you
flow
have
of
done that?
fentanyl by half, but we need Congress to be able to act to actually fix the problem.
So it's all Trump's fault, right?
Why are we allowing these millions of people to come through on the southern border? How come she's not doing anything? And I'll tell you what I would do, and I would be very proud to do it. I would say we would both leave this debate right now. I'd like to see her go down to Washington, D.C. during this debate, because we're wasting a lot of time. Go down to, because she's been so bad, it's so ridiculous. Go down to Washington, D.C. and let her sign a bill to close up the border, because they have the right to do it. They don't need bills. They have the right to do it. The President of the United States, you'll get him out of bed, you'll wake him up at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, you'll say, come on down to the office, let's sign a bill. If he signs a bill that the border is closed, all he has to do is say it to the Border Patrol, who are phenomenal. If they do that, the border is closed.
Now, Madam Vice President, about your flip-flopping.
A quarter of registered voters still say they don't know you. They don't know what makes you tick. And why do you think that is? What's the disconnect?
It's an election bill. And I take it seriously that I have to earn everyone's vote. This is an election for President of the United States. No one should be able to take for granted that they can just declare themselves a candidate and automatically receive support. You have to earn it. And that's what I intend to do.
Let me tell you what your critics and the columnists say.
Okay.
They say that the reason so many voters don't know you is that you have changed your position on so many things. You were against fracking, now you're for it. You supported looser immigration policies, now you're tightening them up. You were for Medicare for all, now you're not. So many that people don't truly know what you believe or what you stand for, and I know you've heard that.
In the last 4 years, I have been Vice President of the United States, and I have been traveling our country, and I have been listening to folks and seeking what is possible in terms of common ground. I believe in building consensus. We are a diverse people, geographically, regionally, in terms of where we are in our backgrounds. And what the American people do want is that we have leaders who can build consensus, where we can figure out compromise and understand it's not a bad thing, as long as you don't compromise your values, to find common sense solutions. And that has been my approach.
Let me ask you a question. How many of you are concerned about the invasion of privacy that is currently going on by the Biden administration? Biden's DOJ is invading individuals' private messages and targeting them based on their political affiliation, and that's why I partnered with Freedom Chat, a private social messaging app that, like me, believes privacy is your fundamental human right. Freedom Chat has variable end-to-end encryption, built-in screenshot protection, no storage of messages on their servers, and no commercial use of user data. I'm such a fan of Freedom Chat, in fact, that I have created my own private channel that you can subscribe to for exclusive content, including never-seen images, videos, and posts. Simply download the app, or if you're on Android, join their waitlist. Search for my channel and subscribe. No one can see the channels that you are subscribed to or the posts that you react to. It's your own perfectly curated private news feed. Speak freely and message privately with Freedom Chat. Download the app today and subscribe to my channel at Larry Elder for exclusive posts and never-before-seen content. Rutroll, this could be a problem. Looks like black undecided Georgia voters don't think of her as Kamala.
Again, a hands up. Was the economy better under Trump, or is the economy better under Biden and Harris? So hand up if you think the economy was better under Trump, and hands up if you think the economy is better under Biden and Harris. Okay, 7-1. That's pretty clear. Is it true? Firstly, I just want to ask a general question about Harris. Then we're going to show some clips for the debate. What's your biggest hesitation about voting for Kamala Harris?
Just, is she going to be able to do the things that she says she's going to be able to do? That's, you know what I mean? Just, is she going to be able to do it? That's my biggest hesitation. Just, is she going to be able to get it past Congress? You know what I'm saying? I don't know. Yep. You know.
Mikhail, how about you?
Everything that glitters ain't gold.
Yeah, for sure.
It looks great on paper, but I'm not sure it could translate to politics, and if she'll even be able to get it passed.
Haywood?
My thing is her strength. That's my focus for her. You know, is she gonna be able to take a punch and give one or two back? You know, that's my biggest thing. And it has nothing to do with her gender, ladies, okay? But you have, we talking about the highest office in the land.
Yeah. If it was Michelle Obama, I would feel totally different.
Yeah,
you know?
You can't be weak and hold that off.
Yeah, like if you put her next to Michelle Obama, it's like...
Or Hillary Clinton.
Or Hillary Clinton, it's like it's no comparison on the strength that I think Michelle Obama or Hillary Clinton would have against her. They would eat her up.
How did Harris come across then? How did she do up against him? Haywood says there, you know, big personality. How did she do? How did she come across?
She kept saying that she's a warrior, she's gonna fight, but I don't know if you're a strong ass. I mean, I get it what you feel, but I don't think you are as like a warrior, like fighter, like she says she is.
Right.
That's just my opinion. Not that I don't think she doesn't care. And like I said, she used a lot of appealing to emotion, like anecdotal, like anecdotal evidence instead of like, you know, she used some facts, but just like to like appeal to people like, hey, you know, I'm just like, you know, to try to get people on her side.
I don't think the bar was set pretty high when it comes to that. When it comes to her speaking, I believe the last debate with Biden set it really low. So I believe she did a lot better than Biden. But that's pretty much what I got from them.
They're both old. Biden is old. Trump is old. We need to get some young folks in there that knows, you know, have an idea of what's going on now. So that's my
Yeah, it was several times where he kept like referring to her as they. Like he almost didn't even address her. Like he kept saying about it. He didn't say her name at all.
Yeah, or like that's your boss. Basically, that's your boss. Like you're just doing what Biden wants to do.
Yeah, and it does make you wonder, right? Because it's kind of like he's saying stuff like y'all just ousted him, and I'm like, well, that's not what happened. But in the back of my mind, I'm like, what if that is what happened? And like now she's the figurehead, you know. So it's difficult to jump on board 100% because you do kind of like you've seen it. We've lived through now, you know, multiple elections, and we've seen how they turned out. So as a person, I do think she's a better person than he is overall character-wise. And that's why, you know, more people I think are leaning towards her. I don't know if that 100% means she'll do a better job in the office.
Final question on Harris in this debate then. From what you've seen so far, put your hand up if you think she's strong enough keep your hand down if you've got doubts whether she's strong enough. So put your hand up if you think Harris is strong enough.
Yes.
I think she's strong enough.
Yeah, just like enough. Yeah. Yeah. just enough. Yeah.
Is that strength that everybody see in the beginning, is it gonna last throughout her 4 years?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
You know, she looked good against Mr. Trump. I don't know, I didn't see it. But when you had to face these other leaders from these other countries, you know, are you gonna have what it takes to stand there and throw punches like they throw a punch?
Yeah.
I'm hearing more doubts even from those who put their hands.
Now, we all know that concern that non-voters are allegedly voting in presidential elections is nothing more than a right-wing conspiracy theory, right?
Non-U.S. citizen migrant workers are being encouraged to vote in November's presidential election. Fox Files investigator Chris Hayes found this out after an employer of migrant workers alerted him.
These union mailers were just sent to non-U.S. citizen migrant workers. They say, quote, stop the steal by stopping Trump's allies, vote for Harris Walz and pro-worker candidates. Here's 11 of the mailers addressed to non-U.S. citizens, mailed to their workplace, which alerted Fox 2. The business, which specializes in landscaping, does not want to be identified. The company's manager told us their migrant worker employees, who are from Mexico, are all background checked and have legal H-2B visas, which allow their temporary stay here. The manager explained the migrant workers are also allowed to have union representation and that they pay dues to their union, called La Una. But the manager cannot understand why the union would send mailers to non-U.S. citizens, encouraging their vote in the presidential election. We've tried repeatedly to get an explanation from Washington, D.C.-based union La Una. 3 emails to their communications department and 3 phone calls. A 4th call also went to voicemail.
Please disperse. Nothing to see here, please.
Speaking of Trump and the job that Kamala Harris did as AG of California, when I ran for governor, very few of the sheriffs of the 58 counties in California supported me. One, however, who did is Riverside Sheriff Chad Bianco. Here's his take on what's going on in California and his take on who he wants to win in November.
Hello, California. It's Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco. You know, for the past 30 years, I've been doing everything I could to keep our community safe by arresting criminals and putting them in jail and putting them in prison, keeping them out of our neighborhoods. For the last 5 years, I've been very critical about our governor for slashing our budgets from corrections, for letting prisoners out early, for closing our prisons. I've been critical of our state legislature for passing laws to make it harder to put people in prison. I've been critical for their changing laws that let prisoners out early. And I've been critical for our Attorney General for seemingly not caring about crime and really being an embarrassment to law enforcement. And this love affair that our governor and our state legislature have with criminals is based on the belief that criminals are not responsible for their own actions. They're a victim of society. And really, it's our fault. It's society's fault. It's business's fault. It's cops' fault. It might be my fault. Law enforcement, apparently, if you listen to our governor, is systemically racist. If you listen to our legislature, our laws are systemically racist. Our judicial system is systemically racist. All of these people that are being put in jail are because of law enforcement bias and DA bias and all of these things. And so they let them out. They give them food. They give them housing. They give them money. They give them drugs and alcohol now. And I got to be honest, I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired. And I'm wondering if I'm having a change of heart and deciding that, you know what, maybe I've been wrong. And I think I'm going to change teams. I know it's going to make some of you angry. I know that you're going to be mad at me, but I'm going to change teams. I think they're onto something, but I don't think they're doing enough. I think that we need to go big. You know me, go big or go home. You're the biggest, you do the best, you're the best at everything, and you might as well do something right if you're going to do it. And I'm all in. And I hope that you're all with me. I hope that you all have this change of heart. You all feel that this is definitely the right thing to do, and you come alongside me in this venture. And I think it's time that instead of letting them out of jail and giving them alcohol and drugs and everything else, I think it's time we put a felon in the White House. Trump 2024, baby. Let's save this country and make America great again.
Well, there's a lot at stake in this upcoming election. But regardless of who's sitting in the White House, the fuse on the economy has already been lit. Even 4 years of a conservative president will not be enough to turn our tide on our $35 trillion national debt. And if the left wins, it's like throwing gas on a dumpster fire. You don't have too much control over the election's outcome, but what you can do right now is protect your savings by diversifying into gold with the help of Birch Gold Group. For millennia, gold has stood firm in the face of greedy governments, economic upheavals, and global strife. And you can protect yourself now. Birch Gold will help you convert an IRA or 401k into an IRA in physical gold, tax-free and penalty-free, and it doesn't cost you a penny out of pocket. In the past 4 years, the buying power of the U.S. dollar has declined. The price of gold has increased 40%. Coincidence? We don't think so. Visit LarryForGold.com, get your free info kit on gold, and trust Birch Gold to protect your savings. Visit LarryForGold.com today. That's LarryForGold.com today. Americans have had enough of supporting companies that hate our values. Tired of compromise? So am I. It's time to switch to Patriot Mobile, America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. They are an example of putting the cause ahead of profits, and that's why I'm proud to partner with them. Patriot Mobile offers dependable nationwide coverage, giving you access to all 3 major networks, which means you get the same coverage you've been accustomed to without funding the left. When you switch over to Patriot Mobile, you're sending a message that you support the First Amendment, the Second Amendment, the sanctity of life, and our military vets and our first responder heroes. Their 100% U.S.-based customer service team makes it easy to switch, keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade. Their team will help you find the best plan for your needs. Just go to patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. That's patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. Get free activation when you use the offer code Larry. Join me and make that switch today. patriotmobile.com/Larry, patriotmobile.com/Larry or call 972-PATRIOT. Can we talk about the FEMA Biden-Harris Hurricane Helene response to North Carolina? This gentleman's name is Philip Anderson.
I say, Democrats and Kamala Harris, people are dying because of you. But y'all are on here right now telling lies, telling some lies about what's happening in North Carolina. You're just retweeting and pushing the lies that these paid shills for Kamala Harris are pushing. But you're not talking to people on the ground. You're not calling them on the phone and texting them. You're not talking. You don't know what the you're talking about. People are dying because of Kamala Harris. Her FEMA is blocking people, was blocking people from saving lives and delivering critical aid. They stopped people from going on rescue missions. They blocked everything. A bunch of these federal employees were just sitting around the hotel rooms, taking up hotel rooms, and there wasn't any hotel rooms for the rescued victims to sleep in. So the hurricane victims had to sleep outside. And you lying Democrats are talking about, oh, well, Donald Trump 5 or 6 years ago during the storm, he blah. So you're lying about that. Let me tell you something. There wasn't a horse on top of a roof of a gymnasium. A horse. There was a horse on top of a roof. There wasn't a car hanging out the side of houses. There were not dead people hanging in power lines and being stuck hanging at the top of trees. Dead people all over the place. All kinds of dead people everywhere. The whole place smells like dead people. Y'all don't know what the you're talking about. It's like the place got hit with a nuclear bomb. That's what it feels like if you're there and you're looking at it. But you are talking about like, oh, it's just 100 people or something. It's much worse than that. But all you Democrats do is lie your ass off and try to minimize it and try to make it seem like FEMA and Kamala Harris are doing a good job. They're not. $750, not even for a single person. It's $750 per a household. And you have to apply to get that money. And everyone so far that I know is getting denied. The overwhelming majority of people are getting denied from that measly $750 because you gave all the FEMA funding to illegal immigrants. So you won't give no one any money, and you won't let everyday people save their fellow Americans. What the are you doing, Kamala Harris? Babies are dying because of you. Children are dying because of you. Countless people are dying because of you. Right now, and for the past few days, people have died because of you. Because of what you have done. Because of your lies. Because of your inaction. That's why they died. And it's your fault. And that's the truth. And it's sad, it's disgusting that we can't just come together on this one thing with random people that aren't even political dying. Thousands of them dying. You'd think that we could come together, but no, we can't. Because you Democrats just want to attack Donald Trump. You just want to defend Kamala Harris from all and any criticism, even if we're talking about life and death, dead children, dead babies, dead mothers, dead. You even defend that for criticism? And by the way, if you actually care so much, then how come you Democrats are not down there in North Carolina? No, I'll make it even easier for you. How come none of you Democrats have donated any money? How come none of you Democrats are raising money for these people? How come Kamala Harris is not raising any money for these people? Why? Y'all have Hollywood. You have one of your celebrities put up a fundraiser and y'all can raise tens of millions and not hundreds of millions of dollars for these victims. But you won't do it because you hate people that are different than you. People you think may be different. And you want to talk about hate and the existential threat when you won't even allow us to save lives because you care so much about stopping people from voting. A lot of these people will never be the same. They're mentally broken if they're not physically broken, if they're not already dead. No one's walking away from that hole. Even if they took no physical damage, they got psychological damage for years. People lost their family, people lost their children, people lost their babies. Y'all can't even begin to imagine. It smells like death. It smells like the Holocaust in there. It's like they got bombed, carpet bombed 100,000 times in a row. That's what it looks like. That's what it feels like when you're there. And there's nothing but lawlessness. People are having to pull knives and guns to defend themselves and their water and their food. It's gotten bad. And where the is Kamala Harris? Where's the leadership? This cannot be who we're gonna vote for. This person cannot be president, and this is how it's gonna be. Just, you know, fundraising for herself. Fundraising for herself, literally while people are dying. She's drinking wine, having champagne with billionaires while thousands of people are dying. Countless people are dying in Georgia, but it's more, especially in North Carolina, it's really bad. And then she goes on a podcast, you know, it's abortion, right? And it's just like, so you're gonna go on a podcast, a bunch of dumb, while they taped that episode while people were dying. It's been a while, 5 minutes or so. I'm gonna leave it at that.
Vote Kamala. Make America San Francisco again.
The activity happening along a narrow one-way street in San Francisco is causing major problems for homeowners and businesses. They say years of complaints over drug dealing, public defecation, and substance use are falling on deaf ears. The trouble spot is Willow Street near Van Ness Avenue. ABC 7 News anchor Dion Lim hit the streets in the neighborhood and shows us what city leaders say are hurdles to solving the problem, along with proposed solutions.
It's hard to believe, driving through the areas of Van Ness Avenue and Willow Streets, we're just blocks from City Hall.
It has been very, very frustrating that we have to, as a resident, have to witness this chaos every single day.
Tent after tent, open drug dealing, drug use, and a whole host of other safety issues.
There's a man throwing knives in front of our door.
Are what residents of one condo complex say they've been dealing with for years, despite reporting to 311 regularly.
A lot of my neighbors, they have been doing so. And also, after we posted many like shots and created a ticket on 311, they never got back to us. They just closed the ticket They just close the ticket without doing anything. I do feel hopeless.
An employee of a restaurant at Willow and Van Ness showed us the bars installed on the front doors after repeated problems.
I'm calling the police every day. Every single day, the same thing. Never change.
I reached out to the Department of Emergency Management, asking what was being done with Willow Street. The city attorney's office sent back a statement saying essentially in part there's only so much they can do, citing a preliminary injunction order from the district court prohibiting enforcement of laws against sitting, lying, or sleeping on public property against involuntary homeless individuals. But the city can offer services to the unhoused, and law enforcement can take action. But as long as the homeless aren't obstructing public right-of-way, they can remain in place. Which is why shortly after we witnessed a street cleaning effort Friday morning,
Like a 1 hour, after 2 hours, everybody come back again.
residents also say they've been reaching out to their supervisor, Dean Preston, who sent me this statement, saying in part he's lobbying for community ambassadors for the area, and 300 neighbors have already signed a petition demanding the mayor fix things fast. As for Jay, who bought her condo in 2014 when the surroundings looked like this, she and her family have been trying to leave.
2022, we tried to sell our unit, but we couldn't sell it.
And say change needs to happen soon, not only for her family, but for the city as a whole.
It used to be a very popular place for people who want to live in the city and in this beautiful condo, but now, no, it's not the same anymore.
Poor Tim Walz. Come again about the borders?
The vice president has made it clear that she has policies that make a difference. Her border policies are the most strongest, the fairest we've seen. It's
but now, Governor, you know a lot of people, including your own party, would not join that statement. There are millions of people who have come here over the last few years that, you know, they see this as an open border.
Well, simply, we have a policy. Donald Trump sees it as a political. Look, James Langford in Oklahoma, the Border Patrol agents, the Wall Street Journal, the Chamber of Commerce, all said pass this legislation. You have to have Congress to authorize 1,500 new border agents. You have to have Congress to authorize DOJ to speed adjudications on these asylum claims. Those are things that would actually work. Donald Trump told us for 4 years he would deal with this. He didn't. He didn't build his wall, 2%. Mexico didn't pay for it. This is a real bill that has bipartisan support. It has the experts on board, and it starts to tackle these issues. And we don't have to resort to demonizing people. We don't have to resort to making up or crafting stories, as Senator Vance said he did. Those things were not happening in Springfield, but it doesn't mean that we can't pass a piece of legislation to strengthen our border. That's what Kamala Harris is talking about.
Well,
She's talking
Governor,
about solving the problem.
That piece of legislation does include the wall that you guys have been so, you've disparaged that. I mean, the vice president has as well, so I don't know if she really intends to move forward with that. But it was negotiated by 3 or 4 senators, and many Republicans came out against it long before President Trump indicated he didn't like it either.
Let's talk about the Minnesota pro-abortion law that you signed, Governor.
Okay, let's clarify more changes that you signed in Minnesota as well. Several things were repealed with respect to reporting infants who may have survived an abortion attempt. Language that used to be part of the statute was taken out. We'll put this on the screen so people can see. It used to require medical personnel to, quote, preserve the life and health of the born alive infant. That language has been repealed. It's no longer part of the law. Also struck from the law was language about reporting infants that are born alive, what treatment they receive, and whether they live or die. Why was it important to you to get that protection out of the law?
Minnesota law aligns with every other case of what physicians are required by their ethical responsibilities. And so it changed nothing other than aligning with all care that physicians provide in any circumstance for any medical case. And so it's alignment, as it's always been. It's the cases we've seen in Minnesota. The outcomes we get in our healthcare results are the best in the nation. And all it did was align with existing law.
But you do acknowledge it takes out the language about preserving the life of an infant who was born alive.
Every doctor has an ethical responsibility to provide what they can in each situation. That is the way the law is written now. It's the same for any person who shows up.
Sounds pretty radical.
I want to clarify what the law is there in Minnesota. Abortion Finder, a website that helps women find access, says abortion is legal throughout pregnancy in Minnesota. There is no ban. or limit on abortion in Minnesota based on how far along in a pregnancy you are. You signed the bill that makes it legal through all 9 months. Is that a position you think Democrats should advocate for nationally?
Look, the vice president and I have been clear. The restoration of Roe versus Wade is what we're asking for.
But that
This is
law
a
goes
woman's
far beyond
right
Roe v. Wade.
to make her own choice. The law is very clear. It does not change that. That was been debunked on every occasion.
But
But
wait,
look, this is a.
but let's agree. What you signed is there's not a single limit through 9 months of pregnancy. Roe had a trimester framework that did have limits through the pregnancy. The Minnesota law does not have that.
This puts the decision with the woman and her health care providers. The situation we have is when you don't have the ability of health care providers to provide that, that's where you end up with a situation like Amanda Zaworski in Texas, where they are afraid to do what's necessary. This doesn't change anything. It puts the decision back on to the woman, to the physicians, and we know that this is simply something to be brought up to be very clear. Donald Trump's asking for a nationwide abortion ban.
Wait, he
and
has
again,
said that
we don't see this
he
as
has
a
said
winning
repeatedly
campaign.
that he will not sign a national abortion ban. Are you calling that just, it's a flat-out lie?
Yes, of course, and Senator Vance has in the past said so too. Now look, they may see this as an election issue. We see it as a right of women to make their own bodily decisions, and that's what the states like my state have the ability to put that in. States like Georgia force women to cross the border, and then we have a death of Amber Thurman. So let's be very clear. Trying to cut hairs on an issue on this is not where the American public's at. They want the restoration of Roe versus Wade. Vice President Harris said she would sign it. That's what we'll do when we're elected.
But to be clear, the Minnesota law is far beyond Roe v. Wade. And about the Amber Thurman case in Georgia, her family has, and it's tragic, she is a young mother who left behind a young son. But what her family has said is it was a complication from an abortion pill that she received, and she didn't get proper care when she went to a Georgia hospital, which had multiple opportunities to intervene there. Her own attorney, the family's attorney, says it wasn't the Georgia law, it was the hospitals. What he claims is malpractice, not treating her when she clearly showed up in distress and still had the byproducts of her pregnancy because of that rare complication from the abortion pill. So just to be clear on the Georgia law and how her family and her attorney sees it.
I'll tell you what, Walz certainly has nailed down the knucklehead vote.
I've tried to do the best I can, but I've not been perfect, and I'm a knucklehead at times.
And I'm also a goofball, and a wingnut, and a knucklehead McSpagatron.
That's what I've said.
Do you ever wake up and realize your life has no purpose?
Do I have a death wish? Morgan asked. Maybe I did. I thought this would be our final run ever. We had made millions and millions of dollars, but God had other plans.
Peter Lowe, the one-time drug dealer turned pastor, along with 2 others, will be executed at 12 midnight local time.
You can be in heaven, or you can be in hell. The choice is yours. I found Christ in here, and he forgave me.
My name is Peter Lowe, and I will be executed in 2 hours.
Jesus is for free, and salvation is a gift. Do you believe in Jesus?
A Real Clear Markets article said, Bank of America needs to come clean about debanking practices. It wrote, and I'm quoting, more victims of Bank of America's debanking regime have come forward, including Timothy II Project International and constitutional scholar John Eastman, a friend of mine, both debanked under similar circumstances by the nation's second largest bank. The bank's lack of transparency about cancellations that suspiciously look like they are based on viewpoint is why shareholders sought a report assessing whether the bank's policies and practices pose a risk of politicized debanking. Old Glory Bank will never debank any law-abiding customer. Our mission is the Constitution. Open an account at oldglorybank.com, and when you get your debit card in the mail, activate it, and you'll get a copy of my latest book, As Goes California, at a 50% discount. oldglorybank.com. That's oldglorybank.com. Now, about those high prices,
Our latest polling shows that 66% of Americans we talked to said that buying groceries is a, quote, major problem for them. And when we ask people about how they feel about the policies of this administration versus the previous, double the amount of people surveyed say that Biden-Harris policies have hurt them rather than help them and their families economically. That's in stark contrast to how they feel when asked about the Trump administration. So what would a Harris-Walz administration do different than a Biden-Harris administration when it comes to convincing people that the economy is going to get better for them because their perception is that it's not?
Well, we saw a blockbuster jobs report this week. We saw interest rates come down, and we've also seen that Vice President Harris laying out a middle-class agenda.
Now, about those Trump-China tariffs that you've criticized, if they're so problematic, why have you kept them?
We're seeing economists talk about Donald Trump's proposal to add a 20% sales tax will cost $4,000.
Okay.
That's everybody. That's not me saying it.
And just to note, that is a tariff, which, by the way, this administration not only kept most of the Trump tariffs, but they added their own as well. So that's got to be part of the conversation.
What exactly is your position on these pro-Hamas, anti-Israel protesters?
You said in a radio interview that anti-Israel protesters were speaking out, quote, for all the right reasons. You know that some of them are carrying Hamas flags. Some of them are calling for the extermination of the Jewish state. Do you want to clarify your praise for that?
Well, I'm certainly not talking about them. I'm talking about the people who understand that we have to end the humanitarian crisis, but they understand we need to return the hostages and bring peace to the region. Look, I will always defend people's rights to First Amendment, but that's not the folks I'm talking about. Those folks are not speaking for the entire group. So I think it's very clear on this. Israel's right, as we've stood with them. Anti-Semitism has no place in this country, and Vice President Harris has been clear about that. I've been clear about it. But the ability to bring a peaceful solution and understand Israel's right to defend itself, the return of the hostages, and Gazans' right to live in peace, too, is something that we're trying to get to. And that's going to take the leadership that we've seen out of Vice President Harris, able to hold this coalition together. And again, when Iran launched their missiles this week, she's in the Situation Room. That's different.
Another rut roll. This woman does a 180 on Trump.
I'm not afraid to admit when I'm wrong. In fact, I'd rather know the truth, even if it means that I'm wrong. And so with that, I'll say I was completely wrong about Trump. The media played me. They played me really good. See, I was a Bernie Sanders fan. I had the t-shirts and everything because I saw that he actually cared about the people, a real politician who actually cared. And I was going to vote for him until something weird happened. They just kept bulldozing him. And then when March 2020 happened, I thought they were trying to bulldoze him again. And I had no idea why Trump wanted to be president in the first place. But I watched a lot of TV at the time, and the news said he played too much golf, he was a racist, and I watched a lot of SNL, and they made fun of him and his sons. So I just thought he was not fit for the job. And I hate to admit, the more that I watched the TV, the more angrier I got at Trump, and without any really good reason. But I had turned off the TV around 2019. And when March 2020 happened, I needed answers because something was off. I needed to know who was on our side and who wasn't. So I was searching all over online for answers as to what was going on and who was the good guys. So I watched Trump live on the White House news briefings on my laptop since I didn't have TV. Every Monday he went live, and I was carefully observing him. He was straightforward, like a businessman, staying hopeful and optimistic and working with what we had at the time. And I saw the other side completely spin everything into fear and chaos and projections months out into the future. I knew that he wasn't trying to push fear, and I could see clearly that he definitely wasn't a bad person. He was a leader. He was positive. He was forward-moving. He was problem-solving. While the other side was focused on the problem and how to suppress me as a citizen, stifle my life, it felt like they were taking away my freedom. Then I watched the news completely spin what he said into something he totally didn't even say. That was a wake-up call. But around March 2020, I talked to a friend, and he said that Trump was in there for a reason. And he started to let me know what was really going on, and suddenly everything started to make sense. And I realized why Trump was president in the first place. At that point, all I cared about was good people who were protecting my country and my freedom, whether it was Bernie or it was Trump. I was just glad that somebody was on my side. I'll say I had the TV off for about a year when I woke up to Trump being a good guy. A lot of people in your ear, a lot of media, a lot of hearsay can really screw up your logical thinking process. It did mine. And I was doing a lot of positive thinking and meditating, so I was able to stay calm even in that difficult situation. I was able to stay hopeful and optimistic because I knew there were good guys. I knew there was somebody fighting for us. I'm sorry to say that this election, I can't vote for a woman, although I really want a woman in the White House. But for me, this isn't about a man versus a woman. This is about who's going to protect our country, our freedom, and the freedom of future generations. Trump is a person who should lead this country. He's made several statements saying, I'm returning power to you, and the best is yet to come. He also said, I can't tell everybody what's really going on. When it comes down to a leader of our country, we can't look at outer appearances. We have to look at their character. Trump is a businessman who worked his way up to the top. He didn't drug deal. He didn't people traffic. He's never even drank alcohol his entire life. But everybody calls him a racist. I can't recall any words that he's ever said that were racist. And then the whole grab him by the pee. If you watch that clip, there's a lot more that's going on. In fact, there's been quite a lot more that's been going on that we don't really understand. Put your fear aside, put your judgments, put your anger aside, and think clearly. Who's fighting for your country? Who's fighting for your rights and your freedom? This isn't about man versus woman, and this isn't about the person who smiles the most or giggles the most. It's about the person who addresses topics, solves problems, and protects freedom of our country. Take another look at him, because you're missing it. You're missing being alive during the greatest president in world history. During one of the greatest events in world history, there's some new technology coming that's going to change everything, and Trump's going to help make sure that we get to the other side, that we get to a world where we can build and collaborate with less corruption, with less lies and manipulation, with more logic and clear understanding of what's really happening in our world. Finally, the shadows, the lies, the deceit, those days are coming to an end. Please think clearly about who's the deceitful one and who's the one who's on your side. I used to get triggered too. It's okay to say you're wrong. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we pivot when we have new data and a new understanding, that we put away fear and anger and we think logically and critically about our future and who we want leading it. For me, there's only one clear choice, and that's Trump.
Imagine if Trump said, if you have a problem figuring out whether you want to vote for me or for Harris, then you ain't Jewish.
And you ain't black. Do you think Biden and Harris have been holding back Israel from winning?
I do. I think everything they do is the opposite. In particular, him. Now, she's a dumber person than him, but he has the worst foreign policy of anybody in history, probably.
Nobody's done more for the Jewish people than I have. Nobody's done more for Israel as a president. Maybe beyond being a president, if you want to know the truth. I should get 100% of the vote. No person has ever been better to the Jewish people. Probably no person, period, to the Jewish people and Israel.
But he firmly believes that the Democratic Party has been co-opted by and is influenced by people who fundamentally believe Israel is in the wrong and that somehow October the 7th was a justified attack. And look, I mean, it makes me sick, honestly, Wolf. When I turn on the television, I see people marching through the streets of major American cities and across college campuses, carrying the Hezbollah flag, flying the Hamas colors, and going out, ripping down the posters of people who've been taken hostage and are still being held hostage today. It makes me sick because I think there's a lot of Republicans, and Donald Trump included, that think this is fundamentally a fight for the future of Western civilization. He's got strong views on it. I don't think he ought to have to apologize for making a forceful case to Jewish Americans about why the Republican Party is better for them today.
The president of France has suggested that there be an arms embargo against Israel, to which the prime minister of Israel said this.
I have a message. I have a message for President Macron. Today, Israel is defending itself on 7 fronts against the enemies of civilization. We're fighting in Gaza against Hamas, those savages who murdered, raped, beheaded, and burned our people on October 7th. We're fighting in Lebanon against Hezbollah, the most heavily armed terror organization in the world, which was planning an even greater massacre than October 7th on our northern border, and that has rocketed Israeli towns and cities for nearly a year. We're fighting against the Houthis in Yemen and the Shiite militias in Iraq and Syria that together have launched hundreds of drones and missile attacks against Israel. We're fighting against terrorists in Judea and Samaria who are trying to murder civilians in the heart of our cities. And we're fighting against Iran, which last week fired over 200 ballistic missiles directly at Israel, and which stands behind the seven-front war against Israel. As Israel fights the forces of barbarism led by Iran, all civilized countries should be standing firmly by Israel's side. Yet President Macron and some other Western leaders are now calling for an arms embargo against Israel. Shame on them. Is Iran imposing an arms embargo on Hezbollah, on the Houthis, on Hamas, and on its other proxies? Of course not. The axis of terror stands together. But countries who supposedly oppose this terror axis call for an arms embargo on Israel. What a disgrace. Well, let me tell you this. Israel will win with or without their support. But their shame will continue long after the war is won. For in defending ourselves against this barbarism, Israel is defending civilizations against those who seek to impose a dark age of fanaticism on all of us. Rest assured, Israel will fight until the battle is won, for our sake and for the sake of the peace and security of the entire world.
What was your name again?
Jarvis.
Jarvis, that's right. Now, perhaps you'll be kind enough to show me around the house.
Very good, sir.
Yeah. I suggest we start with the upstairs.
This is the upstairs, sir.
Yes, I know that. I know that.
But when she mentions about Israel, all of a sudden, she hates Israel. She wouldn't even meet with Netanyahu when he went to Congress to make a very important speech. She refused to be there because she was at a sorority party of hers. She wanted to go to the sorority party. She hates Israel. If she's president, I believe that Israel will not exist within 2 years from now. And I've been pretty good at predictions, and I hope I'm wrong about that one. She hates Israel.
Charlemagne the God has never been the same since I appeared on his show and defended Trump.
Donald Trump gave us the most secure border we ever had. He also supported school choice. He also did the First Step Act, which allowed about 5,000 mostly black men with long criminal sentences, nonviolent, to have their sentences reduced an average of 70 months per. He pardoned Jack Johnson, the first black heavyweight champion. Even Barack Obama didn't do that.
Yeah,
he did an extraordinary job for black people.
You ever heard of the term wake-up call?
No.
It is an incident where a person of color forgets that they are of color and are reminded rather brutally by an unexpected act of racism. Have you ever had any of those?
Oh, brother. Joe Biden insulted you by saying, you ain't really black. We don't know whether or not you want to vote for me or vote for Donald Trump. How dare this guy come in here and insult you, a black man, and tell you you got to think a certain kind of way? I'm amazed that you weren't mad about that. That should have been a wake-up call on your part to have a white guy come in here who also said, by the way, going to put y'all back in chains. And Joe Biden has lied for decades about his civil rights record, claiming that he desegregated movie theaters and restaurants in Wilmington, Delaware, when he didn't do any of that. He lied and said that he tried to visit Nelson Mandela during apartheid South Africa. It seemed to me that should have been a wake-up call for you, but it wasn't.
And Representative Byron Donalds lit him and his co-host up. Yes, Harris owns the Biden-Harris inflation.
The economic incentive of qualified immunity means that your personal assets aren't gone after if something goes wrong. So, you're in business. Do you get involved in a project or a deal that leaves you massively exposed financially? You may, depending on your passion for that project, but then you also sit back and think, now, wait a minute, if something goes wrong, I'm going to be held massively liable. Maybe I need to do something.
When something goes wrong, we're talking about people getting violently hurt or killed.
Yeah, clearly.
And I named people that you brushed over.
But it's when somebody clearly violates a constitutional right.
And when you violate a constitutional right, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you. And that's what I'm talking about. It does not. And Angela, don't do that. It does not.
I thought that was the definition. I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not.
I thought that was the definition.
No, it does not. If you carry yourself outside of the confines of your training and the protocols of that department, qualified immunity doesn't apply to you.
That's not true.
That is very true. That is very true.
That is patently
false. It's patently
Patently
true, and we need to make sure we have that accurate. We cannot make that statement because you have a lot of officers out here who do their job with honor and dignity and respect for the people that they serve.
Well, it says, okay, listen, qualified immunity is a legal doctrine that protects government officials from civil lawsuits when they perform their jobs unless they clearly violate a constitutional right.
That's exactly what I'm saying. And what is a violation of that right is when they're outside the norms of their training and the protocols of that department or that agency. This inflation, which, by the way, was brought to us by Kamala Harris, has really slowed down people from being able to excel.
By Kamala?
Yes.
Vice president.
Oh, Charlemagne.
It's still the president.
Charlemagne, listen, man. When Joe Biden wanted to do his American Rescue Plan, Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate. She broke the tie that started this inflation that has hurt so many people in our country. Everybody listening to your show, it's not true?
First of all, it's
you sure you want to go there?
Tie-breaking vote.
You sure you want to go there?
Go outside, Congressman, when you go outside.
You sure you want to go there? Okay, let's go there.
You had it
You
pretty
got
well.
notes. You got notes, Angela, right?
Larry Summers was the Treasury Secretary for Bill Clinton. He was an economic advisor to Barack Obama. He said that the American Rescue Plan that Joe Biden wanted, that Kamala Harris was the tie-breaking vote in the United States Senate, would create a massive inflation that we have not seen in a generation. Well, guess what? Larry Summers was correct. You know who also was correct, Angela? I was, because I was in the Budget Committee when they brought the bill. And I said in that committee, it's going to cause massive inflation. That's what happened. In 2000, Donald Trump was a member of the Reform Party. Most people don't talk about this. He was a member of the Reform Party. When David Duke joined the Reform Party, he left. And he famously said, I can't be associated with that party because they let David Duke come in. That man is a Klansman. When he bought Mar-a-Lago, he desegregated Mar-a-Lago. But at the time when he bought it, only white people were allowed in Mar-a-Lago. He desegregated that, allowed black people and Jewish people to be a part of Mar-a-Lago. So I think that when you start going down the road of the past, you have to take a man in his totality. I know the man today. And then when you couple that with the economic policies, the energy policies, the foreign policy, we have to acknowledge the reality that in the world today, the United States is in the midst of two conflicts, not directly, but indirectly. We just sent troops over into the Middle East because of the growing conflict with our ally Israel having to essentially secure its sovereignty and its protection from Hezbollah and Hamas. Well, when Donald Trump was president, we didn't have to do any of that. So I acknowledge the stuff that you're talking about that happened in the past, but I think you have to take a man on the full record. And when he was president, he did release a lot of black people from prison. He did that. He did try to reform some of the criminal justice system. He did that as well.
Ladies and gentlemen, Charlemagne the God 2.0.
So I think they mess up in regards to messaging. Like, you'll listen to a lot of reporters and they'll be talking to Trump or J.D. Vance and they'll be talking to them about things that are happening right here in America. Mm-hmm. Because it is an election season right here in America. So it's so many things that we care about here, like, right? So it's always America first. But then, you go to Tim Walz and they're asking him about geopolitical politics. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of times that makes them sound, very out of touch. That makes them sound very out of touch to what's actually going on right here in America.
Or talking about things that's happening overseas and not talking about what's here. But that's what they're being asked.
Exactly. Not saying that stuff is important, but that stuff gets highlighted over, what's happening right here in this country. And when you hear, the Vances and the Trumps talking about what's happening here at home and saying things like America first and make America great again, that messaging sometimes resonates a lot more.
Absolutely.
Not sometimes. It does resonate a lot more.
Because people they live in it.
Exactly. Because you saw what happened in North Carolina. As soon as you, I think this weekend they announced how much money they were sending to, I think it was Lebanon. Mm-hmm. People got outraged. They was like, yo, what about us right here in North Carolina? So like that America First messaging goes much farther, especially during election season.
Yep.
Charlemagne the God says America First is working. Now you know what this means.
And you ain't black.
Shockingly, the Teamsters did not endorse Biden. Turns out 60% of their union members like Trump. This is Teamsters President Sean O'Brien.
I'll be honest with you, I'm a Democrat, but they have us over for the last 40 years. And for once, and not all of them, but for once, we're standing up as a union, probably the only one right now, saying, what have you done for us?
Yeah.
And I'm getting attacked from the left. And we've given, since I've been in office 2.5 years, we've given the Democratic machine $15.7 million. We've given Republicans about $340,000 truth be told. So it's like, people say the Democratic Party is the party of the working people. They're bought and paid for by big tech. Those big tech companies.
Yeah, tech is the new fossil fuel, man.
Right?
That's what I say.
Right. And you've got the Republicans who are now saying, hey, we want to be the working class party, right? And okay, you've got a great opportunity right now to do that. And the Democrats, if 60% of our members aren't supporting you, the system's broken. Yeah. And you need to fix it. Stop pointing fingers at Sean O'Brien. Stop pointing fingers at the Teamsters Union. Look in the mirror. I mean, I had a heated discussion 2 weeks ago with Chuck Schumer. And it got ugly.
Chuck Schumer is a piece of...
And it got ugly because, these politicians, the one thing I've learned, they can walk in and they tell you, I did this for you. Okay, great. Let me tell you what you haven't done for us or our members. And we got into it pretty heavy. And I'm like, you had no problem taking $550,000 from me 3 weeks prior to me going on the Republican National Convention. And then you want to be a tough guy on Twitter or X or whatever it is and throw it out there about me? Like, whatever.
Move over, Joy Reid. This is the Democrat strategist named Aisha Mills on CNN. She's coming for your job.
My first reaction is that we have long known that Donald Trump has revered the Nazis. He has revered Hitler. He's read his book. He used to say he had it on his nightstand. Donald Trump has had a very sinister philosophy, wanting to be a dictator, absolutely dividing people up based on who they are, based on factors about them that have to do with their race and their gender, etc. And when he uses language like this, I don't think that it's a Freudian slip. I think that the danger of a Donald Trump is that he would absolutely try to exterminate an entire group of people because he thinks that their genes are somehow different than his and faulty. And I say this with all the sternness that you hear in my voice because it is serious and Americans should recognize that.
In other words...
Speaking of gas, wait a minute. Wait just a minute. What was in this? Zyklon B. You remember what the Nazis had? Listen. Empty. This was used, man. This was actually used. Wonder how many this little can took out. Huh? Think about it. Here.
Finally, can we get to the point?
This morning, who have accepted Christ as his Savior and as his Lord, and he will demonstrate his faith in the Lord Jesus Christ by willingly being baptized this morning. He's been waiting on this day a long time. And so, Jordan, upon the profession of your faith in the Lord Jesus Christ, I now baptize you in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.
Trick or treat. Some people can deal with spiders, some can't.
Yeah, that's right. I'm bad.
Oh, damn, it's a bug on me. It's not a bug on me. It's on you.
Please tell.
Go tell them? Yeah. What the is that? I swear something's on my nose. Bro, what? Oh my god, bro.
We were out and about for a little while and...
You want to get on here and show them what concealer?
I don't know.
Can you look at the screen and know me for a second? Okay, let me. No, stop. Let it.
Whoa! What do you think I'm wrong, bro?
You ready?
This is a
Ah! Okay, so we're gonna be playing another one of those rating games.
Bro, what the f? This is spidery here.
Makayla, look. Tyler, what is that? What is that?
If Harris wins, whoever did this will likely be thrown in jail.
I've got a new age girl. Tell us what she's like. Environmentalist girl. Does she ride a bike? She has a crystal necklace. She spends a lot of cash. Well, her vibes are rather reckless. She's heading for a crash.
Hope you enjoy. We've got a country to save. Brought to you by my friends at InvestYRefy.com. Invest in America like I do. And by Freedom Chat. Freedom Chat has true end-to-end encryption, no storage of messages on the server, and no commercial use of user data. Speak freely and message privately. Download the app today and subscribe to my Freedom Chat channel at Lariola for exclusive posts and never-before-seen content. We also thank Epoch Times, Old Glory Bank, Patriot Mobile, and Birch Gold. And make sure to follow or subscribe to my channel on whatever platform you are using, whether X, YouTube, Facebook, or Rumble. And be sure to patronize our sponsors. And remember, we've got a country to save.